This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. I got a feeling every time I do the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat report this year, it's all going to be based on whether Jimmy Butler is still playing, whether he's out there and being active, and everything else will revolve around that. Big O, it doesn't seem like much will really change that. It's the Jimmy Butler season.
But, you know, Ira, I told you this before, and I'm going to stay consistent with this, and I just said it before you came on. All right, we're going to find out two roads we're on. But this is good. This is all good. Okay, so you either Jimmy commits, he wants to ball, okay, like Bitcoin over 66,000 now. Anyway, so he wants to ball, right? So then this is going to be a fun season. You're going to win more of your games. You're going to be a top 4 seed because, like I just said before you came on, I think you would agree with me. If Jimmy plays well and plays hard, it trickles down and it makes everybody better because he's not the greedy star. He's the selfless star that elevates all ships. So it's a beautiful thing. Now, if he doesn't want to, it's also beautiful because then we have now seen the end of the road. And so now you either make a trade midseason and you unload and you move on, or you're stuck with them for one more year, but now you know, okay, it's about young guys, it's about developing, and it's about moving forward. And then in a year, we'll get rid of the Jimmy salary and you'll have flexibility, but we'll have closure one way or the other. And I think it's better than being in the middle where we've been for 2 years, like, well, are they trying or are they not trying? You know, and I think Riley already had his fill of this already. So I think this is a good thing for the Heat. It may not be pretty. It may be painful at times. It might be uncomfortable, or it could be a lot of fun. I don't know. But either way, I think it's good because the Heat is going to move on one way or another from the mess they've been in the last 2 years.
Well, I think it's you've been talking about this, and it's important. You only get to this point when a player is approaching the end of his contract. For Jimmy, they could be one more year. There's a player option. If Pat Riley had re-upped him in the offseason, we would not be having this discussion. He would be locked in. It would be all or nothing Jimmy Butler. So you do have those two diversion paths. But if you want to be good now and you want to win now, and I know one of your listeners on your chat line mentioned, can the Heat still win their division, be better than the Orlando Magic this year? If Jimmy Butler is close to being Jimmy Butler, then of the two teams, the Miami Heat have the best player on either team. If he's not, then Paolo Banchero might be better. Then Franz Wagner might be better. So you need to have the best Jimmy Butler to win now. I still think you can. I still think he can come motivated. Now, is it motivated by winning or is it motivated by money? But like you would say, who gives a rat's ass which it is as long as you get productivity? What you have to be careful about is this. If it's motivated by winning, it's a perfect world. You move forward. If it's motivated by money, does that get muted when you give the extension, when you give more time? Or can you reach a happy medium where, you know what, Jimmy? And I don't think any way he or his agent go for this. Let's do the year-by-year plan. We'll tack on another year. We'll give you another player option. We'll take this out incrementally instead of committing to the 3 or 4 years that he and his agent are seeking. You might be able to do that. So you have to find out not only what he's doing, but why he's doing it. But he's still all things Heat. When Jimmy Butler is playing, he's the best player on the Miami Heat. If he's playing with something to prove. It looks like, at least early, he is for this reason. Big O, Jimmy has not played more than 2 exhibitions in years. Didn't play in the preseason at all last year. The simple fact, and I hate to be saying this, that he's getting himself out on the court has to be encouraging. Now, that's a hell of a low bar. Just show up for work. But you know what? So much about this team really is just show up for work.
No, I get that. And look, the unknown for any of you on the beat or in the NBA or whatever is we don't know really what the Heat are thinking, their finality of this whole thing. Okay, if we could get Jimmy back on board, we'll extend them and we'll be happy. Or, yeah, this guy's just going to con us. and he's just going to work for the contract, and then he's going to go back to doing what he just did the last couple of years once we give him the money. And if the Heat are thinking the latter, then there's never going to be an extension, and there'll be a trade, in the middle of the year, one way or another. There'll be some kind of a trade or something like that. That's the part that we don't know. Is the Heat still hopeful, or they believe? Because see, I have a hard time believing that Jimmy Butler, if you give him an extension, can give you Jimmy Butler for that extension. I believe he can give it to you. He can try for this one season. I don't even know if his body will hold up. So if the Heat thinks like I do, there's no future. But if they don't, and they actually think they can, then there's something to play with here. I don't know how they're thinking, and I don't know if you know how they're thinking. That is there really a future here, or we got to find a way to get the hell out of this thing?
Well, it was interesting. When I spoke to Jimmy on Saturday, I came full force with the question about how many games you're going to play. Last year, you joked about playing 10 in the preseason. I asked him about awards. He said something very interesting when I asked him about playing that 65-game threshold. He said, awards don't matter to me anymore. I know what I'm going to get paid. He still believes he's a maximum salary player. He believes because, unfortunately, the NBA has a salary ceiling. He deserves to be at that ceiling. I always hate when contracts become, how much do you got versus what you're worth. And in the NBA, everyone gets the max because that's basically what happens with stars. I do think there's a compromise that Jimmy won't go for, but the Heat have been creative with, and that's this. If you build a new contract, build it on games played. Build it on a performance metric. Build it on something so you constantly have to be the Jimmy Butler we think. A Jimmy Butler who shows up every night, a Jimmy Butler, whatever formula you want to use, who provides you the cohesive statistics and play and minutes to make you a winner, and build it that way. So I would say this, Jimmy, I'll give you an extension. I'll give you another year. But this many games, this type of productivity from you, this type of winning, team winning goals, if we win this amount, so you therefore have them pushing for winning also. But Big O, we know that's not how it works. The players rule, the agents rule, they expect the max, and it's almost inconceivably, even for guys who aren't top 25 players, they get the max. That's become the problem with the NBA with the salary ceiling. That whether you're Steph or whether you're LeBron or whether you're one of the top players, Jokic or someone like that in the Antetokounmpo in the league right now, you just get it. Bam got it, not super max, but he got max, and that's just the way it is. That's the problem with NBA salaries.
Yeah, no, it's it is out. They're out of control in every league, pretty much.
But there are certain players. I would almost give them an unlimited salary because they've proven there's like 5 or 6 players who are the ultimate best. The Doncic's, the Jokic's, the Antetokounmpos, whatever they want, they make you better. But it's these guys who are the 12th best player and the 18th best player and the 26th best player. And they go, yeah, I want that too. Hey, there's a max. I want it. Hey, agent, go get it, or else I'll threaten and the team will get screwed. That's the problem with the way the salaries are aligned right now.
No, I'm with you there. Talk to me a little bit about what you saw yesterday in their win against the Pelicans. What did you pick? I mean, the whole about the 5 guys playing together, that doesn't mean shit to me until we get to the regular season. Then I can start to get a feel for those 5 guys playing together and see, what it'll turn out. But outside of that, which storylines did you pick up from last night?
Well, it's actually the 5th starter that we've been talking about. Who's going to start with Rozier and Hero and Butler and Adebayo? I think we now know it's going to be Nikola Jovic. I wish it was Jokic. Nikola Jovic. The problem is, how is he going to fit in? And now we're seeing it. It was really interesting. And I just posted a story at sunsentinel.com on this. And when Nikola Jovic arrived, he said, I'm a guard. And the Heat were like, yeah, you're 6'10". You ain't no guard. We didn't draft you for that. And if you remember, the Heat sent Jovic to the G League a few times to play center, to literally tenderize him toward playing as a big man. That's not who he is. That's not how a lot of these Europeans are. They want the ball. They want to play make. They want to be ball handlers. I think the Heat have now found a sweet spot for Nikola Jovic. Bust out dribbles, being a playmaker, spacing the floor at the three-point line. That's what we're seeing in the preseason, is this evolution. That's something the Heat do very well. They find your skill set. They find how to best maximize you. What I like about what we're seeing is this. If the starting lineup is Adebayo and Jovic and Butler and Hero and Rozier, I like the bench because I like having Jaime Jaquez off the bench. I like having Duncan Robinson shooting off the bench. I like having Haywood Highsmith's defense off the bench. I like having Kevin Love's veteran leadership rebounding and outlet passes. So the East is so top-heavy in lineups. Boston sold off everything to have that great starting lineup last year. It worked. The Knicks traded off everything to have a great starting lineup this year. We'll see. Same thing with the Sixers. Could the Heat, if they really care about the regular season, utilize their depth to have a successful season, to have, as we spoke about, finishing ahead of the Magic and winning their division, ahead of the Pacers, ahead of the Cavaliers, challenging for a top 4 seed? I think that's the Heat's key to victory. Every one of those top teams in the East, the Celtics, the Knicks, for sure the 76ers, maybe the Bucks have a better starting lineup. Can depth matter? I think that's what we might see at the start of the season.
Yeah, obviously Spo likes to go like his 8-man rotation and kind of keep it tight and all that.
In the playoffs more, yeah.
I love what you're talking about. Go 10, 11 deep. And then obviously this has to work with you in order for you to do this.
Right.
But there's a couple of ways of looking at this. If you want Jimmy to play a lot of games,
bingo.
Well, if the guys off the bench and Jaquez and all those guys do their part
time
and score and all that, exactly, it buys Jimmy time where he doesn't have to play 38 minutes a game and he can play somewhere in the 28, 30, 31 range, keep him fresh all the way up until the postseason. And you have developed a deep rotation. We talked about how maybe Calera doesn't play early on.
Right.
Well, man, you can find a way to get him into that rotation to help you out, especially in games where maybe you've got a nice, comfortable lead or something, and give some people a rest and keep Bam fresh, keep these guys fresh, then do it. And if Jaquez and company can do their jobs off the bench when Jimmy's resting, then that keeps Jimmy fresher too. You listen, it goes two ways. You want Jimmy to stay. You want him to be effective for you down the stretch. You want him to have gas for the playoffs. Well, then you need to extend your rotation and your bench that you have now drafted and developed needs to really come through so you can actually put all those pieces together.
And when you look at what I just offered, if your lineup is Adebayo and Jovic and Butler and Hero and Rozier, and if your next 4 off the bench are Jaquez and Robinson and Love and Highsmith, you have one more spot in the top 10. It's interesting. We've seen now through 2 preseason games. Is it going to be Alec Burks, who's a professional scorer and veteran? Is it going to be Josh Richardson when he comes back from his shoulder injury? Is it going to be Pelle Larsson and what he's shown us in Summer League, in the scrimmage, in the preseason? And that's the great thing. When you can have competition as deep as your number 10 spot, and like you said, we haven't even mentioned Khalil Ware yet, that's a good thing for your team that you can have that kind of depth. So there are storylines. There are 3 preseason exhibitions remaining this week. Tuesday night home against the Spurs, Wednesday night home against the Hawks, Friday in Memphis. There's still decisions to be made here, and that's a really good thing for the Heat, that they have those decisions. We haven't even talked about the Thomas Bryants or the Khalil Wares or the guys at the end of the rotation, and it shows you that you can have that kind of quality NBA depth. They put together a very good roster. They haven't put together a sexy starting lineup. It's just more of the same. But if depth matters, and you can buy time for Jimmy Butler, and you can keep him in the 30-minute range, you can get more games out of him without necessarily overly stressing him. When you get 35, they did it with LeBron, they've done it with older players, you have to be cognizant of the age factor as well.
Yeah. It's they don't have that electrifying player. That's the difference there. That's the one thing. That's the one element that they're missing. That electrifying player. They just don't have that. But going back to Larsson, I love the confidence he plays with.
Yep.
Young people just don't play with that kind of confidence, and young Europeans even less. And so that's why
he's a long-time collegian. So it's not the kid like Jovic who came right from Serbia and some second-tier team over there. It's a kid who played Pac-10 quality basketball at Arizona, who knows what he is and knows what he takes. Again, the Heat drafting the older player in certain spots like they did with Jaquez. So you bring someone in, he's already seasoned, he can give you something. It's a really interesting story. So many people expected him to spend a lot of time at Sioux Falls. I'm not sure he spends any time at Sioux Falls because I think he's NBA ready.
Yeah. He reminds me a lot of Jaquez. This is a kid that's ready.
Mature and good to go.
Yeah. You just need to give him playing time. That's all.
Absolutely. Can you smell what the Swedish chef is cooking? Exactly. Yeah.
Just give him experience, and that's how he's going to get better, from here on out. So yeah, I'm 100% with you there. All right, what do you got going on in the Sentinel outside of that one story you just told us about?
Well, I mentioned that also. Tomorrow it looks like Victor Wembanyama will be coming in with the San Antonio Spurs. Pop has been sort of measuring his time. The Spurs are good this year. They added Chris Paul. They're a different team. And Bam Adebayo spoke about that, and he said, look, I went against this guy in the championship game in the Olympics. He's the unicorn. He's more unicorn than anyone. So I think getting a chance to see Wemby again, you can see it's not the Heat way of doing things, but how tanking has always salvaged the Spurs. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and now Victor Wembanyama. There is something to be said about tanking because you wind up with greatness. The Spurs will be in tomorrow. You'll get to see him. We only get to see him with one regular season visit. You can see how special he is. And the other thing I'm working on is a story on Drew Smith. And I know the offseason thought was, oh my God, they're bringing this guy back in a two-way. We have young players who deserve it more. We have the summer league guys.
Ball handler. Come on. You need him.
See how you need a veteran playmaker and just someone who's going to level things like he is on the second unit. Because let's face it, Tyler Hero's not a pure point guard. Terry Rozier's not a pure point guard. And if you need to chase these speedy guards 94 feet, I would rather have a Drew Smith doing it than having to waste the energy of a Rozier or Tyler Hero. So I'm working on a piece on Drew Smith also. Look, I know he's not the people's choice, but you know what? Your 11th man doesn't have to be the people's choice. He has to be someone who'll give you quality minutes and buy time in case of injury. That's what the Heat have at the back end of the roster. The games that Bam Adebayo can't start, you're probably going to see Thomas Robinson because you don't. You're going to see Thomas Bryant out there because you don't want to have to buy time with Kevin Love at his age. So everyone here has a purpose. This has been constructed pretty well, what they're doing right now. There will be some tough cuts, but you can see, hey, they're going to have depth. And now we'll see how much depth and how far depth takes you.
Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat and catch his work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Ira, as always, thank you, sir. Enjoy the week, and we will catch up next Monday.
Catch you next week on our Acura Pembroke Pines massive Miami Heat season preview. It gets real next week. Thanks, Big O.
Thank you, sir. There you go, Ira Winderman, and go visit Larry Schlossberg and Pat Nasto and Tony Stampone and all the amazing people at Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines, the #1 volume dealership when it comes to Acuras in the Southeast United States. One of the top 2, 3, 4 dealerships in the country. They've been 1, they've been 2. I mean, they're always dominating. And get electrified. The new ZDX is in. $479 right now, lease features and 0.9% financing for 72 months. The RDX, we still have some 2024s. You can get them for $379 a month, 3.9% financing. Check it out for yourself. Full line of certified pre-owned vehicles and, of course, a service center that is just absolutely amazing. Mike Chan, Jordan Ferber, they do great work there, and it's a nice, relaxing place where you can go take your car to get serviced and enjoy yourself in comfort. They've got complimentary water. They've got a little cafeteria. So if you want to get un pastelito or you want to get a soda or something, you can do that at Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.